I admire people that stay together. They stay together 20, 30, 40, 50 years. The problem is the power of doing that to actually love each other and to have life work for you is the hardest part when you don't have the Lord, because
Mm,
most of that work is done by the Lord. The things that bothered me, like I look at the first couple of marriages I had, and still, like, I can't believe I got the second divorce. Who am I? My dad's married to my mom 50 years. Who am I that this happened? And when I look back, I didn't have the Lord. Then I get the Lord, and all of a sudden, it's 32 years later. I'm still married to the same person.
mm,
What's the difference? Well, I actually love this woman, and I found out if everything with God is seed, which is a very important part. Everything with God is seed, time, and harvest. If I sow a seed in time, I'll get a harvest.
mm.
So God said, husbands, love your wife. That seed I've given you to love her, sow that seed to her is spiritual. Love is never physical, it's always spiritual. I
Right.
sow a spiritual seed of love to her with my word. I gave my word to her. What happens? She returns a harvest greater than the seed I sow. It's like I can cut an apple over and open and count the seeds, I know how many seeds are in there. But if I plant one seed, I can't tell you how many apples I'm getting back.
Wow.
That's how marriage works. Husbands, love your wife. That's why you don't see wife love your husband. She can't love you until you sow the seed of love to her first. It's
Mm.
the return that you're getting back from her.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to help you live your best audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. You know, each episode, we dive into the conversations that inspire, motivate, and challenge you to push through the obstacles in your life, reminding you that your greatness often lies on the other side of adversity. Today, we're going to be focusing on the vital themes of perseverance, commitment, and communication, elements that are essential not only in leadership, but also in the sacred union of marriage. Now, think of life as a grand symphony. Just as a conductor leads an orchestra through dynamic crescendos and delicate passages, successful marriages and effective leadership require harmonious communication, unwavering commitment, and the perseverance to navigate life's challenges together. When each instrument plays its part, the result is a beautiful medley. When we embrace these principles, we can create fulfilling and resilient relationships in both our personal and professional lives. Today, we're joined by Pastor Leo J. Bogee. He's a distinguished leader with a remarkable background in both military service and ministry. With 25 years of dedicated service in the Navy, Pastor Leo has transitioned to a role that focuses on fostering healthy relationships within families and churches. He spent the last several decades helping individuals understand the importance of unconditional love, self-worth, and the spiritual warfare that often impacts our lives. His passion for stopping divorces and strengthening families in Christian communities has led him to create impactful workshops and seminars aimed at promoting healthy marriages. Pastor Leo's unique blend of military discipline and spiritual insight make him an ideal guest for our discussion. His experience provides a profound perspective on how commitment and communication can be the bedrock rather, to strong relationships, both in marriage and as well in leadership roles. As we explore these themes, Pastor Leo will share valuable insights that can help empower you to cultivate those essential qualities in your life. So now that we've got you all set up and we're ready to go, let's turn our conversation over to Pastor Leo. Enjoy. Hey, Pastor Leo, thank you for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for making the time to be here, my friend.
It's my pleasure, and I'm blessed to do it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I know. Just off before we went live here, I thank you for your perseverance, and I want to thank you again publicly. I mean, we've been trying to do this for a while, and different mishaps and things have come up that got in our way and prevented us. But none of that matters anymore because we are right here, right now, and so we're good. We're always good.
Amen to that. Yes.
Certainly would certainly again appreciate you being here, but really would love to sort of get your insights and the work that you do in and helping individuals. Because here on this podcast, we talk a lot about that best audacious life ever, and the things that we need to do for ourselves to get ourselves that place. And will there be challenges? Absolutely. Will be obstacles and pitfalls and all sorts of things that get in the way. And for sure, those things exist. But the thing that I believe it is incumbent on all of us is to continue to persevere and push through, right? To make sure that we don't stop, because I truly believe that sort of on the other side of that adversity and all those bad and painful things is kind of where the greatness lies. But we've got to have the perseverance to push through that, or the audaciousness to go forward. And so maybe as a starting point, I can get you to talk a little bit to our audience about yourself, the work you do, and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Okay. Well, I'm retired military. First of all, born in Gary, Indiana, married, 5 sons, 1 daughter, 4 grandsons, 1 granddaughter. We were living in Hawaii for the last 27 years. And then our second oldest son, they had a daughter, our first granddaughter. So my wife says, I'm retired. We're moving back to Oklahoma. So we moved to Oklahoma from Hawaii because of that little girl. So we've been here. But I've had a long career. I had 25 years service in the Navy. Made the highest rank I could make, retired in 1992. So what's that, 32 years ago.
Wow.
And I've had my own companies since then. I've lectured at the University of Hawaii for 10 years on leadership. I would go into companies and help them develop their managers into being leaders. A lot of managers are not leaders. They don't have people skills. That's the missing part. They just tell people what to do. And now we've been here 3.5 years. And we also have an international ministry, which is World Christian Leadership and Training Ministries. And we travel around. Our focus is to stop divorces and to end those in Christian churches and, of course, in Christian living. Seeing your podcast, Audacious Living, is exactly right, because that's what it takes today, because the attacks keep coming. So that got us to this point, and we've been blessed to be here in Oklahoma, doing a lot of work here already, and it's been really great.
What made you land on the space that you did? I mean, look, you had a brilliant career. You retired. Now is the time to stop. And sounds like you just kept working.
Yes, it's amazing when you think you're done. There's no such thing as retirement, especially in ministry.
Right.
I'm still getting calls. I'm going back to Australia, New Zealand. I'll be gone about 6 weeks. Went over to Europe, to Germany, and to Ukraine, and now the request to come to England, which I wouldn't take because I was in Hawaii. It's just the travel's too much. Now I'm in a location where I could get over there if they ask me. But I recognize I don't know who's there. I don't know where they're going to go with the information that I share to stop divorces, the family breakups, things like that. But it only takes one person.
Right.
And you need to be there. God has given you certain gifts, and you need to be there for them and to share that.
And specifically the focus on families and stopping divorces. How did that become something that you felt was important to work in terms of a direction?
Yeah, that's a good question. Being in the military 25 years, you see a lot of family breakups, a lot of divorces, high stress, deployments, all those things happen. I'm a Vietnam vet. I didn't realize how much stress is on your spouse until I went to Vietnam. And she wrote me and said, I can't take it. Someone knocked on the door of this lady down the hall. Her husband was just killed. And every day you're afraid to hear a knock on your door. And so when I got back, we ended up divorcing. And I look back now, it was 16 years of PTSD. I left Vietnam in 72. But until 88, it was 16 years of PTSD. Went through 2 divorces. I couldn't figure out who am I? I was like a totally different person. When you live day to day like that, it definitely has an impact on you. And so I finally got saved in 1988. It's just an amazing encounter with the Lord. Got saved on Sunday, baptized on Tuesday morning in the ocean in Hawaii. And when I came out of that water, it's like a light switch snapped on. And it was an amazing, I can still see it today. It's like whatever my past was, it was gone.
Right.
Started moving forward. And that's where this came up. To stop all these divorces in church, which shocked me. I really thought when I got to church, oh man, this is great. Family get along, everybody loves everybody, and all that.
How it works, right?
They say, don't look behind the curtain. It's crazy. And people, they can fake it very well in church. We see a lot of couples been married for a lot of years, and they'll tell you we've been just making it for the last 10, 15 years, roommates. And where's the love? And they don't understand love. I ask them, what is love? Nobody answers. It's just an amazing thing. But when they find out little things like that, it's a big answer, but it's a little thing like, what's love about?
Right.
And many people think it has to do with how you feel, your emotions, has zero to do with feelings and emotions. And it's not taught that way. Most churches have no idea. Love is God. If God is love, then it can never fail. That's why you can make those statements. Conquers all. And people don't understand that. I love you, but. And then the but is what divorces are all about.
Right. That's where the conditions come in. It's conditional love as opposed to moving in the direction of unconditional love, right? I love you regardless, right? And so
absolutely.
And it's funny when you sort of stop and really look, that unconditional love is what really is missing in a lot of instances, right?
Love is, I want you saved. I tell people, they're like, well, how does God say I want everybody saved? You have people like Hitler, Stalin, all these crazy people that have been around. Well, we all got our Hitler and Stalin in us. You're human. How do you take care of that and keep over it with the word of God? And so when they get that you're trying to manage a marriage by your beliefs, your belief system, which never includes your spouses.
Right.
They are a separate person. Well, if I can only make her do this, if she can only do that, no. Who do you have to be for your marriage to work? I tell the men all the time, what do you have to do to make your marriage work? What do you have to lay down? In other words, get out of the way of yourself long enough to let the other person show up. And when you start looking at it from that perspective, it's like, wow. When I look back, it's like, wow, I'll get back from Vietnam. My wife is gone. She told me she couldn't take the stress anymore, and I blamed her. The reality of it was, what kind of husband was I being that she was with me? It's not about what she was doing. It's about who am I? That changed everything.
Got you. Now, as a pastor, I'd imagine your faith feeds into your work as well. I want to just sort of talk about that connection, because obviously the marriage in the church is sort of a sacred union. And for those, I guess I'm wondering, for those who are non-faith based, not everyone goes to church, not everyone believes in God, not everyone believes that that of that union. How do you sort of reconcile that into the work you do?
That's a good question, because without the Lord, I admire people that stay together. They stay together 20, 30, 40, 50 years. The problem is the power of doing that, to actually love each other and to have life work for you, is the hardest part when you don't have the Lord. Because most of that work is done by the Lord. The things that bothered me, like I look at the first couple of marriages I had, and still, like, I can't believe I got the second divorce. Who am I? My dad's married to my mom 50 years. Who am I that this happened? And when I look back, I didn't have the Lord. Then I get the Lord, and all of a sudden, it's 32 years later, I'm still married to the same person. What's the difference? Well, I actually love this woman, and I found out if everything with God is seed, which is a very important part. Everything with God is seed, time, and harvest. If I sow a seed in time, I'll get a harvest. So God said, husbands, love your wife. That seed I've given you to love her, sow that seed to her. Is spiritual. Love is never physical. It's always spiritual. Right. Sow a spiritual seed of love to her with my word. I gave my word to her. What happens? She returns a harvest greater than the seed I sowed. It's like I can cut an apple over and open and count the seeds. But I know how many seeds are in there. But if I plant one seed, I can't tell you how many apples I'm getting back. Wow. That's how marriage works. Husbands, love your wife. That's why you don't see wife love your husband. She can't love you until you sow the seed of love to her first. It's the return that you're getting back from her.
Yeah. It's a beautiful analogy, by the way. I love that. The apple and the seeds. That's a really good one. The piece around marriage is about commitment, right? I mean, this is a big part of the contract or the journey together. It's that commitment. When there's a breakdown in marriages, or one person decides that I don't want to do this no more, that commitment weans. It becomes not as important, not as significant. Whereas at the very beginning, that commitment was everything, right? But it just shows you, I guess where I'm going with this, it shows you, how fragile the commitment is when the other pieces aren't in place.
Yeah, what's fragile is we can't keep commitments to ourselves.
Mm,
When you look at the things you said, I'm going to do, I'm going to finish, and you don't do it, then you get into a relationship with another person and you
yep.
make all these commitments. When I do a wedding, oh, can I write my vows? You can write them, but I got to read them because they're not everything you want to write is not a vow. So you're giving your word. Do you get that you are nothing more than your word? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And when people see that, it's like, wow, so I'm going to do this for life. How does that work? It works day by day. You're looking out, can we still be together 10 years from now? Well, how about get through till tomorrow? And so you put burdens on yourself and impossible tasks on yourself that don't exist.
Right, right,
Like I said,
right.
that wife that you see in your head that runs around in your head, it's like if she only be this, if she was only this and that, which she was during those, they call them the honeymoon stage of your relationship. She's everything and
Right.
he's everything. And you start, wait a minute, what if they only do this? Well, that's the second stage called conflict stage. Why is there conflict? Because you're not the same people. You're going to conflict. How are you going to resolve these conflicts? Well, you recognize you can't resolve hers, resolve yours. And if you do that, what's the big thing they always talk about in marriage and relationship? Communication. How do you do that? Communication. What communication? With the word of God. Your spirit self is the thing that commits forever. Your flesh self says, well, until the next one comes along, but that's who we are. That's what flesh does. It doesn't care about your commitment. It doesn't care if, like I said, I tell people, your flesh don't even like you. If you have diabetes and one more slice of cake will kill you, your flesh wants the whole cake. And if you're an alcoholic and one more drink will kill you, it wants a fifth of booze. What is that? That's who you really are. When you get
Right.
that, you recognize the only person that controls this person is me.
Mm,
Stop blaming other people when things don't go right, when things happen. If they'd only done this, if they don't, what about you?
right.
If you
What's your
work on that, that was
right.
really one of my principles my father taught me when I went in the military. He said, volunteer for everything.
Okay.
Whoa, everybody says never volunteer. He was right. Because my record was so full of things that I volunteered to do that others didn't have, I went straight to the top. Three
Mm,
commands as the command master chief. I learned things and applied things to my people. Got people into relationships, same thing in the military, stopping the divorces. Why are you getting married? If you're getting married, commit. Same thing I was teaching the military, God said, take to the church. And the
gotcha.
church is actually second,
Mm.
and it
Uh,
works.
the last piece on I want to touch on is the communication aspect. I would
Yeah.
imagine that it's funny. I thought it's the last piece. I think it's really the biggest piece in all this. The missing and sometimes the missing piece in relationships. I wonder if you were talk about just the significance of communication in marriages.
Yeah, you're right. We've put so much emphasis on communicating with each other. A lot of people think it's just spending time talking together, and you got to do that. Don't get me wrong. Those kind of things in any relationship you have to do. But what are you talking about? What are you keeping your word? Can you and your spouse sit down and actually share truth with each other?
Mm,
And to me, if without the church, you can't do that. You can stay together with anybody, but what is that relationship about? I see lots of people that aren't saved in their relationships, and they even come to our Bible studies. And they'll come and they'll hear things. Well, I can't really believe that because they can't accept it without the Holy Spirit in them.
right.
And people don't want to hear that, but it's like I'm just telling you what it says. I didn't write this. And so when you add the Lord to it, all of a sudden things make sense. You're waiting on this person. Well, you know what? If her parents don't like me, well, they don't have to like you. There's nowhere in there where it says, as a matter of fact, it tells you leave your mother and father and cling to your spouse because they may not like you.
Right.
You
Right.
know, they can't love you like your spouse loves you. And so, what are you talking about? We'll pick up things to justify our lack of commitment, therefore, our lack of communicating on a true level with my spouse. What
Mm.
can you talk about? What's her favorite food? What color? What color are her eyes? Guy's been married 10 years. I don't know. Have you ever looked at them? The little things like that are huge. That what am I missing here? And so we've been blessed. Don't get me wrong. We've been married 32 years, but that first 5 years coming from the military, in a
Yes.
command master chief, used to giving commands. Well, when you get married, you take commands. It changes everything. And it's a great thing. I look at that. It's like my wife is just awesome. She is so smart. She loves people, love kids. I always look, if someone doesn't get along with my wife, there's something wrong with that person because she
Mm,
loves you unconditionally just because you're alive.
yeah.
And so our relationship grew from there with our kids. how we are with family. Every time there's an issue in the family, they call us. All those things. Why? Because we can talk. I can go away for a week without her. And oddly, they'll say, "You've been gone a week and a half. Did you take a chaperone with you?" No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if you get over there and you start getting feelings for somebody else? Well, that's always going to be there. God put the attraction male to female, female to male.
Sure.
Satan perverted it, made it male, male, female, female.
Right.
So when I go places, I have the Holy Spirit with me. That's the best chaperone I can get. So if I do that, I go on purpose to share this gospel, to share what they need for their marriages and families to work.
Right.
And you're just amazed how that initial attraction between people, because it's always going to be out there,
Sure.
turns into a friendship, turns into a relationship. It's the same thing with your spouse. How much time do you spend knowing who she is or who he is? A lot of people don't marry for years. I've had them filing divorce with 35 years of marriage. Things like that. What happened? And it's always, well, she's not the same person I married. You're kidding. 35 years later, she's not the same person. 5 kids, This dumb stuff like that, but they actually live on that.
Right.
You know why? Movies, soaps, dopes, and Oprah. That's where they get their information, and it destroys you.
I like that. Movies, soaps, dopes, and Oprah. I love that. That's awesome. As you were talking, you started describing your life, your wife. I could hear the admiration in terms of who she is and her character and loving. How important is it to not just love but have this admiration for your partner?
It's everything, because there's so many people to be attracted to. See, when you get into denial of things like that, then they got you. So it's like my wife and I walking through the mall, and some woman comes walking through and have her breasts are coming out, and they dress nowadays, and she'll say, "Leo, look at this woman." Now, a lot of guys, if you look, your wife's like, "What are you looking at?" Get all upset.
Right.
She knows that's no competition for me and her.
Right.
It's like, we'll pray for her because she has no self-respect.
Mm.
And that's how we look. She doesn't respect herself to be dressed like that. You pray that she gets better. So it's a whole different, she knows that this is it. That's you. I've never been with any woman since I met her. Not since I married her, since the day I met her. It's just been me and her. And I look back at the first 2 marriages were a disaster.
Mm.
Well, this the first one especially, but the second one, which I thought I was kind of healed after Vietnam, no, I wasn't any better. I even told her, "You need to find someone that loves you unconditionally, because I don't know how to do it."
Mm.
And she kept saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to grow up one day and it'll be okay." And we kind of laugh, but it was true. I couldn't do it because I didn't have the Lord. But as soon as I got the Lord, it's like, my God, my word changed.
Gotcha.
My dad was a man of, he'll shake your hand. You don't have to sign anything with him. He shakes your hand, that's a bond. So I was raised with that type of mentality. And so in marriage, when I saw that, it's like, that's what's missing. And it should be in the church, because we have the word here to make that work. And yet we don't understand that the word is there to make it work.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
It makes total sense, and it's a very important sort of mindset shift to understand. So moving forward, with all that you do in the marriage space and helping to save marriages and prevent divorces, you spend a lot of time in the leadership space as well too. You've even written a book. I wonder if you sort of can provide some insights in sort of the leadership work that you do and what your focus is.
Yeah, it's interesting. Leadership in the military is so different. People, and you go to different places, they're leaders. Here's these leaders, and I go in there and I see these people, and they don't get what leadership is. They think leadership is being in charge.
Mm.
See, I could be in charge of Target business tomorrow. I can tell everybody what to do and what not to do. A million mistakes, but I could be in charge of it, but I can't lead it. Leadership requires relationships. You can't lead people you don't know. That's what I changed in the military and my commands. Everybody, you need to know the people that are under you. Are they married? Do they have kids? You know what? It makes them a human being.
Yes.
Before we're just giving orders and bossing people around, we're just in charge. And so in leadership, it's my responsibility to know about this person. They told me, and I went in the 60s, they say, make sure you don't get too close to somebody because they may get killed. But what I realized later was the only chance I get to know you then is now, because you may get killed. And so I need to make sure you're okay. And my commands, if you're going to deploy, I want to make sure that you leave a allotment for your spouse, for your wife and your kids. Are they taken care of before you go? A lot of that wasn't done before. You just left and, send her a few bucks here and there. And it's like, no, family comes first because that's where your heart is. And I did that in the military. I had a 2-star Marine Corps general was like, man, your guys don't get in trouble. They're on time, all this kind of stuff. For a year, we had none of my guys getting in trouble. That's amazing in the military. I had 500 people, 8,000 man Marine Corps brigade, because I'm a Navy corpsman, so over medical. And people couldn't believe it. I told the sergeant majors, I'm the only E9 Navy, and they're all E9 Marines, yelling and screaming at guys and things like that. You know why those guys charge the enemy? Because they choose to. Because if they didn't choose to, they'd shoot you and go the other way.
Right.
I need them committed to their word to do what they said they would do. And it's my job to make sure you're well trained. And that's the other thing, just really quickly, is that who's training people in church to keep their word?
Okay. Good point.
And they're not. I mean, I go there and it's like, I haven't heard a message on homosexuality. I haven't heard a message on marriage. And then you find out, well, the pastor's son got a divorce, his daughter got a divorce, his son's homosexual, his wife, his daughter's. And it's like, well, there are people, but if you don't teach it from the pulpit, it's not going to be in the church because we watch TV. Christians do the same thing. They watch TV, they're on their phone, they get all this information that they don't need.
Right.
And don't know how to handle it. And so that's what I wrote the book for, The Road to Self-Worth. What road are you traveling on? Are you stuck on a detour? You ever get off on a detour and can't find your way back to the freeway? It's frustrating. And that's how most people live. Frustrated on detours and staying off the main road of their life.
Big fan of the conversation around self-worth because to me that's really the starting point for any kind of significant success in your life. Like if you don't see the value in who you are and see that you are worthy and you do have something to offer, share, and give to others, nothing else is going to come out of that. And so I really appreciate that to hear self-worth. Why did you land on that as a particular area of focus?
One of the things was the conflict. They'll say self-esteem, and we think self-esteem is me esteeming me. No, self-esteem comes from me esteeming you. Oh, I'm the number one this, I'm the number one that from them. But inside, I'm about to commit suicide. I've seen these people that you see them, great people. All of a sudden, it's like, what they do? You believe that? They committed. Yeah, because self-worth. Who do you say you are? That's what the book's all about, The Road to Self-Worth. Who do you say you are? And so I'll put these examples in. We also do a 12 to 16-hour workshop. I'll tell you something. You walk in on Friday, and by Saturday afternoon, you are the person you're supposed to be. Gotcha. We have a series of exercises that I developed over years in the military for people to recognize, who am I? Well, I need you to keep your word. The only person that can get you to keep your word is you.
Right.
But like I said, your flesh don't like you. So I've got to slowly get you to recognize there's another part of me that runs all of it.
Got you.
And when I got that, it's like, well, I can get my word. I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock. Before they leave on Friday night to come back for Saturday, I'll say, everybody, go around the room. I want your word. You'll be here on time tomorrow morning. They're like, well, yeah, we signed up. I want you to say, I'm giving my word. They're blown away. It's like, I got this call this morning and I didn't think I was going to make it, but I gave my word. It changes everything.
Gotcha.
It's that powerful.
No, I can totally see that, and I think that's a good strategy, right? Like really commit to something. Go back to commitment. We just talked about marriages for a half hour. Like commit to something. You got to commit to something, and it's also important to do that. And so you've got the first book. There's a sequel coming. Is that what I understand?
Unbelievable. To this day, I wrote the sequel. It's on leadership. 70 pages. And so I was talking to my publisher. This was about September a year ago. And my wife and I went down to Dallas for the weekend. Now, I had some things to do before I sent to the publisher, but I wanted it out before Christmas, so it was September. Came back on Monday, it was gone. It disappeared off my computer. I took it to a friend of mine's shop. He spent 3 hours on my computer trying to find it. It's gone. I've never had that happen before. But I know that GoDaddy erased it.
Okay.
Oh, almost guarantee you GoDaddy. I called them up. Oh, no, we don't do it. Yes, you do. Because my webmaster, this is how crazy the world is. He was over in the Philippines, had a heart attack and died. People didn't know it. So I guess when he didn't pay his bills with them, they wiped out his accounts.
I see.
That's what I think happened. Because I asked him, why would you not call the account owners and see, do you want to continue or whatever? Because the only way you can lose something like that, oh, a 70-page book. And mentally, it has been I'll say a challenge to go back and write all of that again. But the outline is here, but I'll get to it. I've got to do it. So it's going to happen. But leadership is important. But the first part of the road to self-worth is recognizing who you are. Until you get yourself, you like I said, you can't lead people you don't know.
Right.
You're afraid to get into relationships. You're not going to know anybody.
Got you. For listeners that wanted to get a copy of their own book, where can we send them, Pastor?
Yes, you can Google my name. It's probably the easiest way, and then on that you'll go and see the book. Or my publisher is Writers Branding, writersbranding.com. They're out of New Jersey, and that's probably the best way because my son is redoing my whole website. It's a 30-page website that's gone. I mean, everything's gone.
Wow.
The book, the website, and so we're putting that back in. But it's The Road to Self-Worth with my name. It's also on Amazon. Probably the quickest way to get it's on Amazon. But you get that book, the first 3 chapters are on your spiritual warfare. You need to recognize there's an enemy out there. And you need to recognize that you have more power and authority than any Satan, all of them put together. You have more power and authority. Most Christians don't know that. So they're afraid. And this is the demonic month. October is a very demonic month because of Halloween.
Sure.
So things are happening. You wonder, where's this coming from? It's October, taking advantage of it.
Understood. Well, listen, Pastor Leo, this has been enlightening conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time. And again, I love the two worlds, although they're the marriage and divorce and leadership. One would say they're polar opposites. There is some connection between the two, and there's some overlap that you can take from that. So thank you for sharing. Congratulations on the great work. And I'd ask you how retirement's going, but you haven't done that yet. So I mean, whenever that does happen, I'd say you can look back and go, I've done a job well done. But yeah, no, thank you for this, and congrats on all the great work that you're doing.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and when that book's done, I'll make sure you get a copy.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Sounds good. Yes, Pastor.
Sir. God bless you.
Take care. Back we are here on the podcast. In our conversation with Pastor Leo, he emphasized that love is not merely an emotion, it's a commitment, a powerful seed that, when nurtured, yields a rich harvest in our relationships. He shared his own journey of navigating 2 divorces, PTSD, and ultimately finding redemption and purpose through his faith in God. What struck me most was his assertion that many couples, even within the church, are simply coexisting rather than truly loving one another. This conditional approach to love leads to misunderstandings and ultimately heartbreak. By shifting our mindset to embrace unconditional love and recognizing our individual roles within a partnership, we can foster healthier relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. As Pastor Leo highlighted, true love requires us to put in the work, to communicate openly, to persevere through challenges, and to commit wholeheartedly to our partners. The wisdom is not just applicable to marriage, but also resonates deeply within the realms of leadership and community building. If you'd like to connect directly with Pastor Leo and learn more about his work, I certainly encourage you to check out the show notes below for his contact details. He's definitely eager to share his insights and provide support to those seeking to strengthen their relationships. As an added bonus, Pastor Leo is offering listeners an exclusive opportunity to access his upcoming workshops focused on leadership and relationship building. Be sure to take advantage of these valuable resources, and again, the details can be found in the show notes below. We reached the end of the episode. I want to thank you for tuning into this enlightening edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed the conversation today, I'd encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, and share if you haven't already done so, because that is how we grow this podcast and reach even more listeners. I really, really, again, appreciate you being here. And until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.